I've been hooked up with Channel Islands, I think since around 2018, and we made the CI mid and had a good run on that. But I really come from a longboard background, and CI hadn't had a new longboard in like 20 years or something. You know, some of the models still exist, but they sort of just like die out over time. So it was nothing fresh for at least 2 decades. And so being part of the company, I'm like, well, what am I gonna ride? You know, I've got a garage full of great boards from friends. So we reached out to Wayne Rich, who's been part of the CI kind of community for like 3 decades. He's really good friends with the Merrick family. And it made sense to build a board with Wayne. So we started with a CI log, and that board's killer. In a nutshell, that board was built to sort of do that Australian sort of involvement style that's been really, you know, people have been into for the last 5 or 10 years. Once that board was off and running, then I went back to, okay, well, there are some days where I just want a nose ride. You know, it's like really clean, it's waist-high waves, maybe it's at Malibu, maybe it's in the backyard here at, you know, C Street or something. And so I went back to Wayne, I was like, hey, let's make a nose rider. And he's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? There's so many ways we can do this. Do you want big wide nose? You want giant flip in the tail? And so we landed on a place where, well, it's a Channel Islands board, and the way I like to surf is I still wanna be able to move and turn. I don't wanna just be stuck on the nose entirely, but I do want the nose riding to be a lot easier, and especially if anyone gets this board, someone who's looking to nose ride has a really stable platform, but when they go to the tail, they're not going to be stuck on this sort of like pivotal, difficult to manage type of board. And so he's like, all right, I got the idea. And the key point was that we didn't want a giant wide nose. A lot of nose riders have about 19-inch noses, and there's this belief that a wider nose will make you nose ride better. I don't subscribe to that, and Wayne agrees. It's sort of in the middle to the back through the tail, so it has to do with the rocker, the outline, the bottom contours, and the way those all work together. That's really where the nose riding magic's happening. And of course the fin pulls it all together.
I was talking to Devon quite a bit because he now lives in Ventura, so he's down the road from me, and he was like, hey, we're doing a nose rider with Wayno. And I was like, whoa, sick. And then he showed up at the beach at Rincon one day and was like, here it is. And I took it for a spin and got really psyched on it. And then I kind of became one of the, you know, R&D participants, and mostly I was forcing myself into it because I really wanted to make the fin for it. And so I was like, let's do this proper. Like, let's really get the right fin for this thing. And so we did a couple sessions, and what I did was, I'll show you, I was like really inspired. I mean, obviously longboarding is way in my wheelhouse, so it felt pretty natural to kind of try and do this. But we had like, I don't know, man, we did so many different fins. Like I rode 9 different fins in this thing, and we fully went ham. It was pretty exciting to do that because, I don't know, it's like one of those luxuries, right? Like there's probably not a lot of people who would be able to grab 9 different fins that would technically like work in the board. I think what's really awesome when you're working with someone like Devon especially is that he has like this really focused sensitivity to what he's after and being able to refine something. So like truly R&D, right? I think that that's the beauty of this, is taking something and being like, I have an end goal in mind, and I have the sensitivity in my surfing to know how to get there. And so it was cool. I think I would say we probably whittled it down to like maybe 3 or 4 fins. And this is a really cool way to start it, right? Is to be like, hey, fins already exist. So rather than trying to start a curve from scratch that feels like it would fit the board was already made. We had it in hand. We're like, let's go to the, you know, existing sort of lineup and see what might work to give us a direction. We kind of found, I think, the right balance of like whittling down, hey, this didn't feel good here, this didn't feel right here, we want more of this, and then Chuck ended up taking kind of all of, I sort of digested mine and Devon's, feelings and conversation during the surf. Like we actually had two boards. We're both like swapping fins, thank goodness for the fin jack. We're just like ripping fins out in and out of the board. And I was kind of tired, but like we were able to bring that all to Chuck, and then, 45 years of fin making and template designing. He had a really cool, beginning sample for us, and then we just kept going from there.
We got a couple of curves together and made a concept fin, and so I just kind of made that, and both Troy and Devon rode this fin, which was, it was fairly close, but with just a conversation, which is pretty cool. Anyway, and then we got Wayne involved, and so Wayne submitted a template. Here's prototype number 1, spec'd out a little bit of flex. We wanted a fuller leading edge down here at the bottom half of the fin. And so we did that, and right away we decided that we wanted a little bit off of the base was just a little bit long. We wanted a little bit off of the leading edge down at the base. So shortened that up and got to a version 2, and this was pretty much the fin that both Troy and Devon really liked. Those guys were nose riding and turning, and rail turning, which is pretty sweet. To be able to get both of those things in a nose rider board is kind of a big ask, and so yeah.
We talked about, let's try to get away from the amount of rake we had with the original fin for the CI log to get more rotation, but how do we get the drive? Chuck kept tuning the fin, and he tuned it more off the leading edge. He started tuning out the trailing edge, and you can see how much he took out of the trailing edge here. It's pretty substantial, and by tuning that out, he got the rotation we're looking for and still enough area to drive the fin.
Where we ended up with Chuck and talking to Troy and trying a lot of different things was we landed on sort of a hybrid, which is let's get the best part of the fin that helps it nose ride, which is that wide base, but then let's get a lot less area in the tip so that when we go back to turn the board, we don't have any liabilities. Sometimes those pivot fins, they kind of catch you off, but you'll see the arm go, whoa, I wasn't expecting that to happen. Now, there's people who really love those fins, but on a personal level, the waves and the type of surfing that I enjoy and some of my friends is the kind of continuous movement. So this hybrid fin that we ended up on is insane, and really stoked on it.
At the very end, Devon was the most instrumental in kind of like getting it to its final stage, which is really cool. I think like part of this whole process is really to just make sure that what we're building is super on point and, like I said, gets to the end goal. And I think that a lot of times it's easier to take the shortcut, and be like, hey, like here's a template, let's just like run it. And I feel like we're trying our best to get really involved in the actual like testing, right? And the R&D, like be like, hey, we're comfortable making 3 or 4 iterations of this before it gets to the final product and is like the right pairing for the board. And then I think what's cool about that is you end up with a product that, yes, this fin, the CI fin that we now have, the CI Noserider fin, it pairs so well with the Noserider board, but it also is gonna work super well in other Noseriders, right? Like it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
I think people are really gonna like this fin because I think they'll like it in other boards because it has more rotation than a barn door style, like my Harmonic 67 fin is a traditional fin, man. That thing is, area all the way. Those are just take that thing out and stand on that thing and just stop the board and rotate, but then you pay a price for that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that you can build a surfboard to nose ride, and so complementing that surfboard with a nose riding fin is sort of, it's the shaper's call kind of more than the fin maker's call. See what I'm saying? Yeah. That's sort of why I even started in the very beginning, is to make the shaper's dream come true. It's, you know, it's a component of the surfboard, a really super important component, and the better you create the component for the surfboard, the fin, you know, the better the surfing's gonna happen. And so, yeah.
Being able to cross-pollinate from Chuck and Wayne and drawing on their experience was really special. All I can provide is an idea and some feedback of what I'm feeling, but between those two guys who have decades of experience, to be able to translate what I'm saying and come back with really great fins to try, and through the process we whittled it down and landed in this place that we're at, which is, they were hearing from me, he wants to be able to go to that next level but doesn't want the liability of a pivot fin, and so I'm thankful to kind of been working with those two guys, and they came up with the perfect solution.